सर उनके एंड पे म्यूट किया हुआ है, आपके यहाँ से नहीं किया। देखिए सबके माइक्स पे इसके लिए आवाज नहीं।
Uh, can you mute the person? Yeah, yeah. So, reflection on 20 years. As you know, in 2005, we amended our Patent Act, which had served India very well since 1970. The Patents Act of 1970 of India was the major sort of piece of industrial policy which helped India to build a very strong foundation in pharmaceutical industry, building an affordable and accessible, pharmaceutical industry, which made India as a pharmacy of the world. So, besides providing access to affordable generic medicines to Indians, before that, we were, having very expensive medicines, under product patent regime. So this Act of 1970 was a major development for the country's history, which changed a lot of things and made India as a major producer of generic pharmaceuticals, and it helped India to address its own health issues, access to affordable medicines, and the effects have been really terrific. But under the TRIPS agreement of WTO, which we signed on the act of the WTO single undertaking when it was formed, we were to amend our patent law by within a 10-year transition, and 2005 is when it was done. And there were at that time, I recall very vividly, and many of the participants of that debate are in the room and joining online. There was a very vigorous debate that the change over or switch over to product patents would lead to a lot of undesirable consequences. For instance, the many of the new medicines we will not be able to produce anymore, and they will have to be kind of either licensed or and then if you license them and pay hefty fees, you the drug prices will go up, medicine prices will go up, and there will be a lot of other consequences. And we there were a lot of writings that India's the place in International Division of Labor in pharmaceutical industry will be sort of constrained, or we will lose that preeminence that we had achieved because of this Patents Act of 1970. So 20 years down the line, what has been our experience is something which is very important to review. Whether those apprehensions that were raised at that time have really, how they have been addressed, whether they really happened, whether the drug prices did go up and made our medicines unaffordable, or access issues have, how did we fare in the international market after the Patents Act was adopted. So there are all of these issues worth debating, and after 20 years of this new Patents Act, and how are we poised for the next 20 years from now on, and whether some of those issues that were raised, that our pharmaceutical industry will have to increase our attention to innovation, in-house R&D, and develop its own pipeline of new medicines, new molecules, whether that has happened, and in general, what we think has come out of this new Patents Act in last 20 years. So, with that just backdrop, I want to go over this program. We have been very fortunate to have some very, uh, sort of knowledgeable experts around the table and online to bring different perspectives on what actually came out of this new Patent Act. And these experts include some very knowledgeable people, including Mr. Pradhan, advisor, Central Drugs Standards Control Organization of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and former Joint Drugs Controller. Professor Ruchi Sharma, who has been working on the patents issue for many years, and she is professor and head of School of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Indore, and our regular collaborator. Mr. Bharat Shah, the national president of IDMA. IDMA, as we know, is a very important body of Indian pharma industry. I don't know, something with my watch. And managing director of S. Kant Healthcare Limited. So, Mr. Bharat Shah is joining online. Are you there, Mr. Shah? Yeah, you can see. Okay, and then Ms. Kalpana Jaswal, she's Associate Vice President of Sun Pharma. Sun Pharma is one Indian company which is the largest among the Indian companies, and also having very strong R&D setup. We actually visited their R&D lab in Gurgaon some time back. Then Miss and so Miss Jaswal is also joining online. Then we have again the Miss Archana Jatkar joining online. She is Associate Secretary General of Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance, again a very important industry body. And she is currently chair for the International Trade and Intellectual Property Committee of International Generic and Biosimilar Association, IGBA, for the term 2023-2025. And then we have in the room Mr. Gopakumar Nair. He heads a IP boutique firm, Gopakumar Nair Associates, and chairman of IPR committee of IDMA, a very well-known name in the pharma industry. Then we have another Gopakumar who joining online. He's legal advisor and senior researcher from the Third World Network and regular contributor to the debate on the pharma industry and the patenting system. And finally, we have my own colleague, Reggie Joseph, who has been actively working on pharma industry for many years. And we have in the room number of experts, including Dinesh Abrol, including Ajay Srivastava, very seasoned experts on this subject. And I also see on the list of people who have joined online some very senior experts and policy makers. So welcome everyone, and I will not come in between the speakers of this afternoon and all others. So straight away, let me turn to the speakers of this afternoon, and invite Mr. Arun Pradhan to take the floor and share his perspective on the 20 years of the new Patents Act And since we have a number of speakers and number of others joining the discussion, I would appreciate if you could limit your initial sort of remarks to 7-8 minutes so that we can come back to a discussion, because there are several senior people in the room and also online. So, Mr. Pradhan, over to you.
Thank you, sir. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are very much audible. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Good afternoon to all the distinguished experts and delegates here. I think today is a historical day that we are discussing on a very important topics on product patents in the pharmaceutical sector in India, a reflection on 20 years. So from my perspective, I would just like to, mention that yes, our, patent regime in India that has helped tremendously the Indian pharma industry to become pharmacy of the world today. As we all know, between 1970s to 2005, because that time there was process patents, there has been, consistent and high growth of pharma industry. And today we call that we are the pharmacy of the world. And today pharma exports have stood at more than 30 billion US dollars. And today, out of every top 25 global generics, 10 are from India. And as we all know that 60 to 70% of WHO's vaccine for essential immunizations are sourced from India. And not only that, our exports goes to all the country globally, including the most regulated countries like US, European Union and others. And US is the largest exporting destination with over 30% of global export from India. So having said that, I think, this product patent regime has started from 1st January 2005. And this has, multifaceted effect, as already sir has mentioned, that having product patent in India, while there are many advantages, like it may incentivize innovation, and the patent regimes obviously encourages pharmaceutical companies to invest in research and development. And also it can actually provide opportunities for growth of pharma industry, and it improves access to new medicines specifically, and for addressing the disease burden in a country like India. However, there are certain, challenges also having a product patent in countries, developing countries like India, because obviously because of product patent, there may be increased cost of drugs, of new drugs, which are actually developed and marketed commercially under patent regime with product patent. And that can have an impact on generic drug industry also. And there may be, potential for abuse of patent rights also, because sometimes we have seen earlier also there have been attempt to evergreen of the product, and that's why that section 3D has addressed many of our challenges in India. And having said that, I think new drug approval in India, as we all know, that new drug approvals and clinical trials are regulated under the New Drugs and Clinical Trial Rules, which has been framed under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940. And if we talk little bit earlier, because fast detailed, provisions regarding conduct of clinical trial, approval of new drug, assessment of safety, efficacy of new drug, those detailed provisions were incorporated in the Drugs and Cosmetics Rule earlier in 1988. And since then, there has been a lot of, changes, lot of development in the drug regulatory regime. And now for regulation of clinical trial and new drug, we have a comprehensive, robust regulatory provisions under drugs and cosmetic, under new drugs and clinical trial rules under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, which has various provisions which encourage innovation, which encourage, development of new drugs. Just to say a few of these, because in the new drugs and clinical trials, we have a timelines prescribed for processing of application of clinical trials. And not only that, in order to encourage the indigenously research developed molecules, we have 30 days timeline prescribed for processing of any clinical trial application, which is a product of research in India through indigenous research. And for other types of clinical trial, which are done with investigational product, not researched or innovated in India, the timeline for processing of clinical trial application is 90 working days. However, there are provision of deemed approval also, because in case of clinical trial application, if no response is received from the regulator, that is DCGI, CDSCO, then there is a provision of deemed approval. Within the timelines, if they don't receive, applicant don't receive any response, then it is considered deemed approved, and they can go ahead for initiating the clinical trial without any requirement of formal permission from DCGI. However, there is a provision that in that case, they have to intimate the DCGI or CDSCO that they have actually submitted the application and the timeline is over, no response has been received, and therefore they are going ahead with the initiation of the clinical trial. So that kind of provisions are there. Similarly, for new drug approval also, that timelines for processing of new drug application is already prescribed in the rules. That is 90 working days. Within 90 working days, the CDSCO and DCGI office has to examine the application for assessment of safety efficacy of new drug, and they have to actually give response within the timelines. Also, in our new drugs clinical trial rules, which is actually comprehensive and it is at par with global regulatory regime, there are provisions for accelerated approval and expedited approval, because accelerated approval means under certain situation, like in case of serious disease or life-threatening conditions, or in case of a drug which is being developed for a disease which has a special relevance to Indian health scenario. In that case, there may be consideration of abbreviation or relaxation or deferment or omission of certain data, including clinical trial data. And also under accelerated approval process, we have a provisions that in case of innovation of an investigational product, which has been found to have remarkable efficacy under phase 2 clinical trial, then based on phase 2, without further going for phase 3, that type of products can be considered for approval. So all these types of provisions have helped to strengthen the ecosystem for innovation in our country of pharmaceutical products. So with this product, few words, I think today we have a regulatory regime, we have a patent regime, which are robust and relevant for Indian ecosystem, which has strengthened our ecosystem to address, the issue of innovation, and at the same time to address the issue of accessibility and affordability of the medicine. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pradhan. I think you have given a very comprehensive overview of how the new Patent Act, of course, had created new challenges, but our regulatory system was able to minimize the damage and exploit the good part of it, and helping to strengthen the innovative ecosystem. So very interesting thoughts, and I'm sure our other colleagues on the panel will respond to some of the issues you have raised and elaborate them further. So with that, let me turn to Professor Ruchi Sharma, who is in the room, and again 7-8 minutes to begin with. Yeah, and then we will come back. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to a very important panel today. And good afternoon, everybody. As sir said that yes, our patent policy has evolved over a period of a time, starting from colonial phase and then moving on to what can be attributed as a restrictive phase when we did not allow for a product patent, and then having met with the transition phase, and then of course where we are today now. Now, just to assess that the impact of the restrictive phase, it has to be understood in terms of the capabilities which were there at that point of a time. And also sometimes we also miss out on the point of, very interesting industry academia linkages which were already existing pre-independence that actually contributed towards the evolution of pharmaceutical and chemical industry in India. For example, there was, eminent scientists like P.C. Ray behind your Bengal chemical and pharmaceutical industry, including Professor Gajjar and Professor Bhatnagar, right? So those capabilities then they came along with a change where we now moved in a direction where we developed very different kind of a capabilities, right, in the process patenting, and that led to a creation of a system where we are today. Now, when we are evaluating how we have been responding in the past 20 years, and when we do look at the data, we find that there has been a steep decline when we look at total patent applications filed at Indian Patent Office, which is also expected because it was in alignment with the what was going on with respect to the pharmaceutical sector. Not only that, also we have witnessed important changes with respect to Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, etc. And the data also highlights how there is an upward trend after 2005, and that has been well noted in the literature. Now, when we talk about particularly the patent numbers and how they have evolved, particularly in the context of pharmaceutical sector, so there has been different studies which has been list which has been released by Indian Patent Office, and where they have been demarking between product patents and the process patent in the pharmaceutical sector. And those numbers actually show we started with a very small product patent granted by number 3 in 2005, and we did reach to around 1369 in 2008, and the number was around 1046 in 2009. And if you look at in the pharmaceutical sector, the patents which are granted 998 in the time period of 10, 11, 13, 14, it increased. However, after that, we found that the pharmaceutical sector data was mixed with the chemical sector, and then we find that it becomes difficult to kind of figure out where that. So we try to reach the same numbers through a different channel where we identify CMI based companies, and then when we look at the data, then again there are a bit of a discrepancies in that because of high proportion of non-resident patenting in India. So when we are looking at from a CMI perspective, then we will be looking at largely a resident, whether foreign or Indian, foreign-owned firms. So that is one concern which we have with respect to the data. How do we approach when we look at particularly pharmaceutical sector patents, whether we should go by IPC classification? If we go by IPC classification, our numbers are large, and then we have to look at the non-resident patenting. But whether they will be working through distributors or through some contract, sellers, so that becomes an interesting point where we need to really pay attention, because if we simply go via CMI data, then we are missing out on a very large proportion of information there. Then what we also did, we pitched the data of new drug approval from US FDA vis-a-vis the number we got from CDSCO website. And there has been, of course, a gap. The gap has in fact increased between the time period from 1978 to 1985. That is when the drug price control, that came into picture. And then we find a very interesting phase where the drug approved in India was higher than the US. That was immediately after 2005. Right. So then when we move to the product patent regime, we find that the new drug approval has increased. That means newer versions or newer drugs are now being introduced in the market. But sadly, that gap immediately after 2012, we find it begins to widen again. And then that widening, I think, requires much more research and understanding, because what we have witnessed in the American, in the other, developed countries context, that over a period of a time, the strategic use of patent has increased immensely. And when they say strategic use of patent is something which is beyond the simple use of patents as a means for protecting their own IP. So that is something beyond that. So when in pharmaceutical, there's a distinction between primary patent and a secondary patent. And we do talk about in the Indian context that section 3D can actually, help us in, reducing the secondary patent. But there was a recent study which also shows that in those economies in Brazil and India where there are certain provisions like that, they are not very effective in stopping the secondary patenting. So the strategic use of patenting, non-introduction of the newer drug, I think that is one area we really need to kind of look into. And the last point I want to highlight is with respect to when we talk about the role of a patent policy. First is, of course, the major four hypotheses which were given by McCulloch in 1958, including the reason of natural law, reward by monopoly, and monopoly profit incentive, and exchange for secret. So this exchange for secret, sometimes it tend to be get a bit not so highlighted, but it is very important part of why patent policy regimes has been introduced. Why? Because we need that information to be out, so that that entire the premise that technology is cumulative in nature, and it can actually support in building the technology further. So then when we look at it, then maybe these are our own frustrations as a researchers. We find that the data is sometimes it's not as easy. It is much more easy for us to work on a US patent data than maybe sometimes Indian Patent Office data. However, having said that, there has been a tremendous leap in terms of access and availability of information in last 10 years, particularly with respect to in-pass and all. We have been using that, and on Indian Patent Office website, information is definitely much more available and much more easy to access also. But I think there is a lot of scope in that. And why we need that scope right now, and we need to focus on this, because the recent technologies in the research which are building on AI and ML, and which actually use the information which is existing, right? So say for example, there's one study which shows that 1 out of 5,000 candidate active ingredients which will go into the clinical phase 1 will become be successful. So if this is the success rate, then can't we use the existing knowledge to reduce that 1 into 5,000 to something else? So the cost of R&D can actually come down, particularly when we start using and building this knowledge infrastructure for undertaking R&D. So that is the thought which I want to leave the panel with, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruchi. I think, again, a major contribution. You have shared the trends and patterns which one notices after the 2005, and whether the gap between the new introductions has increased or declined and all that. And it's very important, to have this empirical data before us to make a judgment on how we are doing with this new act, introduction of product patents in India. Now, with that, let me turn to a actual industry player, Mr. Bharat Shah, who is also very knowledgeable about not only the drug industry, but also the patenting and all issues related to that. And as I said earlier, he is national president of IDMA. So, Mr. Shah, you have the floor.
Respected Professor Nagesh Kumarji.
Mr. Shah, can you please turn on your camera so that we can...
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, we can see you.
Nagesh Kumarji, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Respected Mr. Arun Pradhanji, distinguished panelists, colleagues from academia, policy and industry. Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of the Indian Drug Manufacturers Association, I thank ISID for the opportunity to be part of this important policy roundtable, reflecting on 2 decades of Indian product patent regime. Although I am joining virtually, ITMA deeply values such platforms that enable constructive dialogues on the future of pharmaceutical innovation, trade, and public health. As the leading association of Indian pharma manufacturers, ITMA has played a significant role throughout India's journey of aligning with TRIPS. From the early GATT negotiation to the legislative process of early 2000, we have actively participated in consultation and parliamentary reviews. Importantly, Dr. Gopkumar Nair, a distinguished IP expert and former president of ITMA, actively contributed to policy discussion and stakeholder consultation around pharmaceutical patent law. Section 3D, a globally recognized clause that helps prevent evergreening of drug patent and promotes access to affordable medicine. We are pleased that Dr. Nair will also be addressing this roundtable today. India was among the developing nations that strongly opposed the inclusion of intellectual property rights in trade agreements during the Uruguay round. The Dunkel draft, which eventually led to the TRIPS agreement, was met with resistance across Indian civil society and industry due to concern over access, affordability, and innovation autonomy. Despite this, TRIPS became binding in 1995 under Article 65.4 of the TRIPS agreement. All developing countries that did not previously grant product patent for pharmaceutical or agrochemical, including India, were granted a 10-year transition period until January 2005 to introduce such patent protection. India made full use of this transition period, during which it implemented the mailbox system and introduced exclusive marketing rights. Via the 1999 amendment, EMR provided temporary market exclusivity when patent applications were pending and marketing approval had been granted. Meanwhile, least development countries were granted even longer transition, currently extended until 1st January 33 for pharmaceuticals. Today, we are witnessing a renewed wave of pressure through free trade agreements with developed countries to incorporate TRIPS plus provisions which go beyond what TRIPS mandate. These include patent term expansion beyond 20 years, data exclusivity that delays generic entry, patent linkage, tying drug approval to patent status, restriction on compulsory licensing, and attack on Section 3D itself. Notably, the UK-India FTA draft in Chapter 4.15 attempts to position TRIPS only as a baseline, potentially opening the door for TRIPS plus obligation. This is deeply concerning, as TRIPS compliance is already the gold standard recognized by the WTO. India must remain vigilant in preserving its sovereign right to use TRIPS flexibilities, especially in the pharmaceutical sector. Between 2008 and 2010, a series of seizures of Indian-made generic drugs occurred at European ports, notably in the Netherlands and Germany. While these medicines were in lawful transit to countries like Brazil and Nigeria. Equally troubling was the seizure by Norwegian authorities of consignment of the HIV drug Abacavir, manufactured in India and intended for Nigeria. This action, taken under regional border enforcement rule, disrupted legitimate trade and compromised global health delivery. India and Brazil jointly raised this issue at the WTO, leading a mutually agreed solution in 2011. However, these seizures remain a stark reminder of how TRIPS plus enforcement measures can weaponize IP rules against developing country interests. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed the structural inequities of the global IP regime.
जो हम लोगों ने अभी किया था
India, along with South Africa, proposed a temporary TRIPS waiver in October 2020 to enable broader access to vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. Though supported by over 100 countries, the final WTO decision in June 22 limited the waiver only to vaccines and delayed action on diagnostics and therapeutics. The episode revealed the limitation of global solidarity under rigid IP system and reaffirmed the relevance of TRIPS flexibility for public health. India's Section 3D has withstood both legal and diplomatic challenges and is recognized globally as a model for anti-evergreening. It has been upheld by Indian Supreme Court and aligned squarely with the Doha Declaration on TRIPS and Public Act 2001, which affirm members' right to protect public health and promote access to medicine for all. Any attempt, bilateral or multilateral, to dilute Section 3D is an attempt to weaken this carefully balanced framework. As we reflect on these 20 years, let us acknowledge that India's patent law has enabled a robust generic industry serving not just India but the world. The principle of affordability, equity, and health justice must remain central to our innovation framework. Future policy must resist TRIPS commitment, defend Section 3D, and ensure India's ability to manufacture and export affordable medicines. On behalf of IDMA, I reiterate our commitment to working with the government, academia, and global institutions to strengthen India's pharmaceutical sovereignty while advancing responsible innovation and universal access. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. I think very important statement. And, IDMA is actually, although you are joining online, but IDMA is also in the room with Mr. Madan is sitting very much here. And so I think you have made a very important contribution. Not only you have raised how India was able to protect its interests by using this Article 3D, and but you have also raised the concerns of this TRIPS plus kind of provisions coming in the agreements or free trade agreement, the FTAs that we are negotiating. Recently, in this month, beginning of this month, one was signed with UK, then EU is in the pipeline, and we don't know what will happen with the bilateral trade agreement, which is under negotiation with the US. So we need to be extremely careful. This concern which you have raised is very much on our mind. And in fact, just before this discussion started, we were very much discussing this only, whether TRIPS plus will go into and what damage it could do, and we need to be careful. So thank you very much, Mr. Shah, and I'll come back to you in the open discussion, but thank you. And now another industry leader from Sun Pharma. We have with us Ms. Kalpana Jaswal, sorry, joining online. So Kalpana ji, you have the floor.
Just give me a minute. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
sir. Just give me, I'll just share my slides.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please. If you can put it in the presentation mode, please.
It's okay now?
No, I think two screens. I think it is to be. We are able to see your slide and the next slide. Yeah. But it's okay. I think you can go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much, sir. And I would just say that it's an opportunity for Sun Pharma to be a part of the prestigious Institute for Studies in Industrial Development. And I must thank you and Dr. Reggie Thomas for inviting us for a very important discussion. So just to set the context for my presentation, I would just like to give an overview of, just 1 minute. Let's go to the next slide. Just 1 minute. Okay. Just a minute. So Sun Pharma, India's largest pharmaceutical company, has played a pivotal role in advancing healthcare access both in India and globally over the last 42 years. And with a global revenue of $5.8 billion, 41 manufacturing facilities, and a presence of in about 100 countries, the company stands as symbols for quality, innovation, and trust. 2025 marks 20 years since India transitioned to a product patent regime under the WTO TRIPS agreement. And this milestone offers a moment to reflect on how companies like Sun Pharma have adapted, innovated, and contributed to shaping a balanced IP and access to the ecosystem. When it comes to adapting to a new patient landscape, I think prior to 2005, Indian policymakers played a pivotal role in shaping an ecosystem that enabled the growth of a domestic pharmaceutical industry. And Sun Pharma, like many Indian players, had capitalized in this environment by leveraging reverse engineering and the process innovation to produce affordable generics. And post TRIPS and Indian Patent Amendment in 2005, the company quickly showed a transition and aligned with the global IP norms while upholding our vision of reaching people and touching lives globally as a leader provider for valued medicine. And this strategic shift involved expanding its R&D capability. If you see the slide on, like we had been having an investment of 6.2, 6.4, but I think our vision to invest on R&D capabilities increased to 7 to 8% moving forward. And the strengthening patent portfolio, investing in global compliance, acquiring global assets such as Taro and Ranbaxy, and this results in pharmaceutical transformed into a top global generic leader. Sun Pharma now had been focusing towards innovation-driven growth. If you really see in this slide, I think there has been a lot of investments happening, and that actually differentiated generics, complex generics, and specialty products. And its R&D hubs in India, Israel, and US fuel innovation across dermatology, ophthalmology, and digital therapeutics. And the company has also filed numerous patents and investing hugely into our patents. If you see this slide, I just wanted to give a little glimpse. If you see Sun as a company whole, entirety and license and acquired IP, we have filed approximately 3,000 patents. And nearly about 2,000 plus worldwide, we got the patent granted, and nearly 100 had been granted in India. I think this has given an access and ensuring while competing globally when it comes to access to healthcare. Despite operating under a product patent regimen, Sun Pharma has maintained its commitment to affordability and access in India and across over 100 countries. And I think we played a critical role in supplying quality assured cost effective medicines in areas like oncology, psychiatry, cardiology, and now specialty therapies. And I think the best example had been COVID-19 pandemic, the way how as a Indian manufacturers, Sun and the other Indian manufacturers in India, they really rampant, they came up to the support to the regulators and to the public across in India. And medicines such as remdesivir and others, all possible because of the balance between IP, innovation, and access. I think the main crux when I was talking to Mr. Reggie Thomas, he really wanted me to touch upon on policy reflection and challenges. I think one of the most important things that the Indian patent framework with safeguard built in as been said by our previous speaker, Section 3D and pre-grant opposition remain vital to balance IP rights and public health. The TRIPS agreement actually protects intellectual property rights while allowing key flexibility to balance innovation with public health. And Section 3D is one of the key policy tools to prevent the practice of evergreening, where minor modification to the existing drugs are used to unjustifiably extend patent monopolies. And by requiring enhanced therapeutic efficacy for patent eligibility. If you see this slide for the benefit of all the group, I have just given the glimpse what is the Section 3D and how it has really played and how people have taken an undue advantage, and there have been a pros and cons when it comes to Section 3D, and I just thought to reflect upon in my next slide about pros and cons of Section 3D. One side we are talking about, it's one of the very important area where I think Indian industry and the affordability of the medicines and public by large will have a real gain. I think when it comes to promoting competition and affordability by preventing evergreening of patents, allow generics drug manufacturers to enter the market, potentially lowering the drug prices. It also encourages genuine innovation and also protects public health. But when I see the other side of the cons, it also discourages research and development. The high bar of patentability can be discouraging to the research and develop who are working for incremental improvement for new uses of existing drugs, and also can stifle innovation in certain areas. It can be difficult for companies to obtain patent for new formulation or use of known drugs, potentially hindering innovation in those areas. And legal uncertainty and interpretation issues. The meaning and application of Section 3D, particularly regarding therapeutic efficacy, can be subject to interpretation, leading to legal uncertainty and potential disputes. And also, I would like to take on to another very interesting thing that, from how the compulsory licensing, has come up to the existence. What I really wanted to say that any person interested may take an application to the controller for grant of compulsory license for patent after an expiry of expiry of 3 years from the date of grant of the patent. What I really wanted to say about that, there had been a lot of support from the Indian government, and I'm giving an example of sorafenib. Sorafenib is one of the products which was being used for liver and kidney problems. And when this drug, a buyer, was not able to take care of the need of the patients, immediately the NATCO company was given a grant to supply this medicine as an Indian manufacturer in India. And in 2012, India issued its first ever compulsory license for the cancer drug and for a medication used to treat liver and kidney cancers. And this license granted to Natco Pharma allowed them to manufacture and sell a generic version of the drug. And the Indian government decision to grant the license was based on the fact that the drug was not reasonably affordable or adequately available to the public in India. And the case marked the first time a compulsory license was granted for a patented drug in India. And the decision was based on the patent holder buyer not making the drug available at a reasonable price and failing to ensure adequate public access. And the Indian government prioritized public health by granting the license, ensuring that the patient could access a life-saving drug at a more affordable prices. See, the objective from a strategic point of view, you have to see and sum up a few things. Section 3D not only preserves space for domestic innovation and affordable manufacturing, but also strengthens India's global position, supplying quality generics to both developing and developed markets. It reflects a balanced IP regimen that prioritizes the public health without undermining the meaningful innovation. And despite this, what we have seen, we are increasingly witnessing originators company adopting evergreening strategies, not only in India, but also in other key markets to delay the timely entry of generics and ultimately affecting the patient access. And tactics such as attempting patent linkage, multiple litigation suits, and must say product hopping are very common in India. And patent linkage attempt to link patent status with drug regulatory system has been attempted in several cases, and one of the very glaring example is Genuvia. See, the objective is to promote genuine innovation that improve patient outcome. In addition, regulator unpredictability and pricing control in several advanced markets certain times present significant challenges. But at times today, we had been seeing, as Pradhanji sir has already told, there is a lot of work happening at the DCGI office in terms of giving an access and also making a drug real well in the market, so that the affordability of the issue and a patent granted to one company has been taken care. So with over 300 patent expiry between 2023 and 2030 in area of oncology, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, it presents tremendous opportunity to companies to further provide for affordable medicines are available to patients. And for a company like Sun Pharma, a transparent and balanced IP system is important, but so is regulatory, convergence across jurisdiction to facilitate timely access and streamlining complex global life. So the road ahead, I must say that a balanced ecosystem, respecting patent rights while safeguarding public health is key to sustaining India's identity, innovator and pharmacy of the world, not just for patients in India but also in the world. This is only country where generic industry is thriving. A lot of efforts are gone by the Indian regulator and the government, and they coming out with a lot of schemes to encourage domestic innovation. And Sun Pharma journey over these 2 decades reflects the resilience, adaptability, and ambition of Indian pharma. And the company experience exemplifies how India firm can thrive in a global IP regime and serve public health needs and steadily move up the innovation curve while balancing it with access to affordable medicine for patients across country. So India must achieve the balance between IPA, innovation, and access in the interest of public health. And we are committed to provide quality medicine at affordable price for patients in India across the world. And with this, I really want to do thank you for giving this opportunity to give our thoughts from the Indian manufacturer side. And over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kalpana, for sharing this very interesting, insightful presentation. I think your emphasis on the balance between the genuine innovation and public health concerns is very right. And that way, I think I must compliment those who kind of drafted this agreement in 2005 before it was when it was adopted, that they could find some creative ways to protect the Indian health concerns, and we were under obligation to have the new patent act, but we could minimize the damage by incorporating the section 3D and all other provisions, and including the other regulatory provisions which Mr. Pradhan was talking in the beginning. So very interesting, and I think this is a lesson probably for other developing countries and LDCs which will be entering the product patent regime after their this exemption or transition phase is over, that to take lessons from Indian experience. Now, I want to turn to Ms. Archana Jatkar. She's Associate Secretary General of IPA, in Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. So over to you, Ms. Archana.
Yes, Kumarji, can I take your leave? Gopal Kumar is there, since I have to attend some other Zoom call.
Yeah, sure.
Huh?
Thank you.
Thank
and in any case, Mr. Nair and Ms. Madan are here.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Over to you, Archana.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, and thanks to all the industry colleagues
all my senior colleagues in industry, Bharat Bhai Shahji, Dr. Nair, Ashok Madanji, all of them have lived this industry and they've lived this policy changes. And they have described very aptly, how the journey has been, the Indian Patents Act and the Indian industry. I think it's a very interesting story. And as Kalpana has also highlighted, how we've grown many folds in last 20 years. What I also wanted to do in my brief presentation here, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, is that just to quickly introduce IPA. It's an organization and industry representative of about 23 large Indian pharma companies who are committed to patient care. And we've been also incepted about 25 years ago. So our story is pretty much the Indian Patents Act story. And collectively, these companies account for about 80% of the exports. From India, the R&D expenditure of about 85% are contributed by our members. And about 65% of domestic market is what their contribution to the Indian economy. Prior to 2005, we all know the policymakers played a pivotal role in shaping an ecosystem that enabled the growth of domestic pharma industry in India. Several players like Sun Pharma came into existence, capitalized on the environment created by the policies by the Indian government, whether it was process innovation, reverse engineering, all that led to a production of affordable generics. And this approach, I think, was very critical in addressing the public health needs at the time when India's pharma industry was still in its infancy and access to medicine was limited for a larger population. Post TRIPS agreement, the Indian Patents Act amendment happened. The companies quickly pivoted to a new reality. They embraced these IP norms set up by the Indian Patent Amendment Act, which were upholding the vision of our policymakers. And the strategic shift led to expansion of not just generics industry, but also allowed companies to explore R&D capabilities to strengthen their patent portfolios. They invested in global compliances, and many of our companies became exporters. Today, we export to more than 150 countries. Every third tablet in the US is from India. Our contributions in vaccines and in generics around the world are well known. If you even look at the market size, what we had in, say, 1999, 2000 was merely $3 billion, which is now expanded to about $58 billion. Our export have grew from what was 4 to 5 billion in that period to almost about $30 billion. And we are also a net foreign exchange earners, almost 19 to $20 billion. So we've traveled considerable distance when this new act came into existence. Of course, the journey had been interesting. There were challenges in adapting on the policy side, on the legislation slides, and there were multiple legal issues that came to fore, when it came to implementation, and we were consistently challenged as an industry. Over the years, we've also seen the number of patents that are being filed in India have increased. The number of pharmaceutical patents have also, if you look at the data from the patents offices, they have also increased. The share of Indian companies patent has also increased. So it's a consistently increasing story at this point in time. And thanks to our policymakers, our administrative colleagues in the government who have consistently looked at reforming, modernizing the IP system and strengthening the enforcement, our legislative and court systems have really helped grow an expansion of this act. Now, over the years, Indian companies have expanded its scope, and as we saw in the last presentation from Kalpana, Indian industry has moved from, although have a huge presence in generics, we are also moving up the value chain in the complex generics, in the specialty drugs. We're also present and fueling innovation, across several therapy lines, whether it is ophthalmology, the digital therapeutics, and so on and so forth. So companies have actually invested in the IP capabilities in what we have seen, although, is a great resilience in terms of, and a great commitment from the industry in terms of not only looking at innovation and trying to consistently work on the therapeutic areas that are useful for Indian population, but also work on the other side on how they can ensure an equitable access to these affordable medicines. And the story of, from a very policy front over the years has been, India has really effectively utilized the flexibilities that were provided in the TRIPS agreement of striking the balance between innovation and public health. India's patent regime, and we've heard from previous speakers about how safeguards like Section 3D, the pre-grant opposition, they remain central to this balance. And there have been cases, the famous case of Novartis Glivec case, it has gone to the Supreme Court, where its constitutionality was even challenged. I think we've been, by and large, able to sustain what we looked for or amended in 2005's Patent Act. And strategically speaking, this balanced intellectual property framework has supported domestic innovation. It has encouraged healthy competition in the market, and it has reinforced that India's leadership as a trusted global supplier of affordable and quality assured medicines. Despite this, we are increasingly witnessing challenges from the originator side, especially in extending the monopolies, evergreening strategies. And these evergreening strategies are not limited just to patent-related provisions. I've heard, I think many of you made a point on whether it TRIPS plus provisions, whether it is patent linkage on data exclusivity and patent-related thing. I think there's a large section of challenges also come from the regulatory side, which goes beyond the patent system, which goes beyond regulatory side. It's a mix of patent, regulatory, competition, and legislative implications. What I also thought it'll be great to flag here is an interesting report called Gaming the System, which we've come out from the generics industry perspective. And this report essentially lists down what kind of practices and strategies innovators are adopting for delaying the launch of generic medicines and impacting the access to affordable medicines. And I'll post this link on the chat box here. What essentially this report tells is, that monopoly expanding strategies, they're taking various forms and they're employed by the originators worldwide. No region is immune from these practices. Where it's possible many of us thought that these type of TRIPS plus provisions or practices are prevalent in sophisticated patent systems of, say, US or Europe. but you will see that increasingly being observed in emerging markets, whether it is India or Argentina or elsewhere. The same practices are being used across multiple regions for the same products, and multiple strategies are employed in combination with same jurisdiction. The reason I'm flagging these issues and why they are relevant for India or Indian companies, that today we are exporters to more than 150 countries, and we do face these challenges not just in India but also in many markets. What is important here for us to understand is, the objective of Patent Act, of course, is to promote genuine innovation that improves patient outcomes, and not to deprive patients of affordable medicines through strategic extensions. And in addition to patentability, what is also required, patent system, what is also required is to look beyond and look at the regulatory system, look at other legislative tools that are available for many of the companies to, use it as a tactic to extend their exclusivities. What we see, and this is increasingly also a discussion in many of the FTAs, we have seen, considerable interest and inclination of countries to introduce TRIPS Plus provision, whether it is patent linkage or data exclusivity or patent term extension. These all have been attempted in other geographies also, and so it is being attempted. What is not working at this point of time is the great visionary Patent Amendment Act that Indian policymakers had instituted in 2005, where they rightly struck the balance between public health, innovation, and access. And I think for a country like India, we also have to mull over what kind of system we require. It's not about an industry, but it is more about the patient welfare that we should be looking at. A country where out-of-pocket expenditure is higher than 47-50%, I think it's important to know what kind of innovative drugs which are expensive should be available for us and what should be done. So I think the Indian Patent Act has been able to strike that balance between innovation and public health. And going forward and looking at the challenges we see, I think we need to look at very holistically the entire pharma industry, not just the patent system. We must achieve the balance between innovation and access. Look at, how the interface between regulatory system, patent system, and competition authorities. So to achieve that balance.
Thank you.
I'll pause here and happy to take any questions and we can go in depth.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Archana ji. I think you have also given that kind of insight that so far we have managed very well, with the new amendment of this act in 2005. We managed to achieve the balance between, health concerns, public health issues, and innovation, and we have moved up the value chain. And everything, all different parameters of pharmaceutical industry have looked up. But the concern of the TRIPS Plus provisions finding their way through FTAs is something very much on our minds to as we go forward. So with that, let me turn to Nair Saab, and he, as everyone has been kind of referring to him as the sort of towering figure and in a very, sort of big understanding or insights that he brings to the table. So over to you, sir. Nair Saab.
Thank you, Nagesh ji. And Good evening, friends, colleagues, and friends. I am grateful to ISID for giving us this opportunity of presenting our views at a critical time. As I was mentioning earlier, it looked like you have what you call promotion. That something like this requires. It happened today because the tariff structure proposed by the giant, I am not taking names, has been turned down by the courts, or at least for time being. And most importantly, we ought to be taking note that no tariff barrier issues may come into play, because what is to be taken note is that international treaties are being thrown to the wind, and just sort of people are doing what they want to do or like to do. And we need to take note that I summarize very, very briefly what I would like to say. We should not succumb to threats or compulsions. We are the largest generic manufacturer in the world. The whole world needs our medicines. Whatever show they may put up, whatever threat they may say, whatever arm twisting they may do, they need our medicines. And we should not succumb to any type of such pressures. We should not surrender. The hard fought, I cannot really express here how much time, energy we have sort of burned the midnight oil to get the TRIPS regime in a balanced manner. Contribution by countries like India, Brazil, South Africa is, I cannot tell you that the TRIPS regime by consensus, it has emerged from what the original Dungle draft was there. Which is worth doing some research. And we have succeeded in getting a friendly TRIPS regime. And post-TRIPS regime, most important negotiations with the government of India on the 3 amendments, especially the 3rd amendment. You can imagine the 3rd amendment was postponed on 24th, the bill act, proposed act, and 26th, the proposed rules extended up to April to get it approved in the parliament. And how much we got, how much efforts we put in to get a friendly, what is friendly? A balance, as mentioned by others, a balanced regime which suits the inventor as well as the patients. It was not as easy. And we got a patent act in place by 2005, which has stood the test of time. There have been tremendous efforts to challenge our patent law. 2006, Archana Ji referred to Gleevec patent case. Patent pre-grant opposition was rejected. But what Novartis did was, Novartis challenged the constitutionality of 3D. And 2006 to 2018, in the Supreme Court, the constitutionality of 3D has been sort of recognized and approved by the Supreme Court. So why should we go and say that we are letting it go? It should not be done. And it would be very, very, we will be doing an injustice to the Indian public, not only Indian public, the public at large in the developing countries, or even to USA. So basically, the balance in TRIPS and balance in Indian patent law, we should not surrender at any cost. It has stood of test of time. It could not have been challenged. It was not challenged. And we must play our continued games in bargaining the FTAs without sacrificing them, these benefits. And most of them, some of them have been obtained on the floor of the parliament. So basically, we have signed agreement with Japan, FTA. We have signed agreement with Australia. We have signed with South Africa, South Korea, without bargaining on our IP. So we should stay firm. And if somebody is losing, it will be they if they don't go through the FTA in the form in other, considering the other benefits. So that is one thing. As far as the Indian research is concerned, Indian research has mentioned already that we are making substantial improvement, but we have not made a breakthrough in new drug research yet. So unfortunately, that is something, some effort is going on. Commercial considerations are taking a little priority as well as, but then there are been continuous efforts by all these leading Indian companies. Some of them have come out with some molecules. Wokat has come, Glenmark has come, Sun Pharma is coming, your Zydus is coming. So there are countries who are trying to come up with new molecules, which is not easy, especially on the regulatory side. So basically, we have doing well as far as the post TRIPS regime is concerned, and we should not surrender our trust, and which we will eventually become a innovator. We will come up with disruptive innovations in pharmaceutical field also with blockbuster molecules eventually, but not in the immediate. Efforts are in progress. So basically, I would like to say that we should not compromise on data exclusivity, which are these patent linkages, regulatory linkages. As soon as the TRIPS regime came, I am personally trying to give my personal story. As soon as the patent regime came, the then Drugs Control General of India tried to introduce patent linkage and data exclusivity by asking, where did you get the data? You please certify that it has not been copied from any already approved dossiers. The Government of India did away with, they removed the person rather than allowed to continue that practice. So basically, thereafter, that 44 of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act 44A has been amended, saying that this provision, any loophole, is not left in the Drugs Act. So basically, today we are in a reasonably good progress, and compared to the reverse engineering, which was mentioned by Archanaji, the reverse engineering progress from 1970 to 1995 or 2005, we are doing substantially better. We have, as mentioned, we have become the global leader, and we will become the global leader in innovated blockbuster drugs also eventually, but due to with the progress that our leading companies are making. I think we should not surrender to any. I don't think there is any other matter which requires. One thing I want to mention very importantly, we are doing our patent law regime. Fortunately or unfortunately, slightly is the regulatory bar is quite high. To an extent, many people who can't get an Indian patent are getting a US patent or a European patent. Let that be so. But there is a scope for jugaads. I was in the WIPO, and the US Judge Reina, he was abundantly describing the jugaad innovations from India, which need to be somewhere brought into the system. And this is common man's innovation. They must be made to participate. Common man, newer, younger educational institutions at lower levels of education, they all must be encouraged to innovatively participate. And one thing I would like to add is, as far as jugaad system or utility patent or earlier called petty patent system is concerned, they should be given a limited term of 5 to 7 years and no litigation, but a SCP type, standard essential patent type of low royalty based, low incentive based this thing, and it should be maybe on FRAN terms. So depending on the degree of innovation. So these three things I wanted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nair Saab. I think very interesting and insightful comments. Uh, I think you are giving a clear, very clear voice and support to Indian policymakers not to succumb to pressure and agree to the TRIPS plus provisions, which they may like to, I mean, the trade partners may like to push through. Because the Patents Act of 2005 has served our interests very well. And you have also raised this issue of informal innovation that is happening in India and how to provide some cover to that, to encourage this further through utility models or petty patents, which are, sort of giving some limited duration of protection, 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 years. And so that informal innovation also gets encouraged because the Patents Act has a high bar on what can be patented. Very useful remarks. And now with that, I turn to the other Gopakumar, who is with the Third World Network. Gopakumar, very good to see you on the screen. And so over to you.
So thank you, Professor Nakesh, as well as ISI team for organizing this webinar discussion. So one of the important concerns during the amendment to India's Patent Act or during the Uruguay round of negotiation is the implications of the TRIPS agreement on access to medicines, especially a country like India, where out-of-pocket expenditure constitute major part of health expenditure and also major reason for impoverishment in the country. So now, after 20 years, if you look at it, so I would like to make three broad points on from that perspective. The first thing is that to make a comprehensive assessment of the implication of product patent on access to affordable medicine is almost it is possible to do, but it is difficult to do because in the absence of data available in the public domain. We do not have a data of no new chemical entities approved so far from the introduction of product patent and the generic availability from a publicly available sources. We need to work on it. Actually, we are working with Dr. Gopakumar Nair to create such a database and to make it in the public domain. So we do not have that. Even the regulators body does not make, our CDSCO does not maintain a database of the name of the new chemical entity and generic approval or any originator approval related to that particular chemical entity. So that's an issue. So having said this, now the important approach to address the concerns on access to medicines as well as the future of India's pharmaceutical industry was to make use of the flexibilities. Flexibilities are two stages: prior to the grant of patent as well as the post grant of the patent. So now the first point is that we have our Patent Act, compared to many developing countries, have maximum number of flexibilities and to the maximum level, but it could have gone much more higher to have an optimal use of flexibilities. But now, when it comes to the implementation, our patent office has a mixed record, rather, I would say, a poor record in implementing the very safeguards incorporated in the Act. So, of late, we moved away from the quality of patent towards quantity of patent, where in 2024 it had the record of, it set itself a record of, granting around 100,000 patents a year. So this has really reduced the quality of patent in the country. If you look at comparable with the other countries, nearly 87% of India's patent application examined get granted. patents in the country. So this is an issue. So accountability of patent office is very important to implement the patent law on a day-to-day basis, fully reflecting the legislative intent behind the all the Section 3, as well as Section 2 of the Patents Act. The second, the post-grant stage, when the prices are going up of a patented medicine, India's Patent Act provides grounds for granting compulsory license. But as mentioned earlier, till date, only one compulsory license have been granted. And around around four incidents of application, and in one case it was granted, and 3 cases it were rejected. But as we can see, many times the companies are not coming up forward to apply for compulsory license due to various reasons. One reason is that the major companies' markets are export markets. That's in USA and Europe. Say they do not want to disturb by applying a compulsory license, which may have repercussions in the export market. Second, many of these companies are having business partnerships like contract manufacturing at various levels. So this can also have an implications on this issue. And third, the very policy environment, they think that it will be kind of challenging the government to apply for a compulsory license. And further, it also involves a lot of litigation costs, because every compulsory license theoretically ends at the Supreme Court. So 3 levels of litigation. So various reasons, the companies have not come forward to apply for compulsory license. Then that takes me to the third point. The government's own approach after the incorporation of all these flexibilities since 2005 is in an opposite direction. If you look at the national IPR policy, where it's an example, actually, we will find lot of provisioning of the whole focus is on creating awareness about IP and increasing the number of IP application, but you don't find any mention about encouraging the use of flexibilities, which is part of the Patents Act. So that's an issue. So that gives the priorities. So as a result of it, we do have a chilling effect on the use of flexibilities. That takes me to the third point. But access is an important issue. And though we do not have a comprehensive data, these are the number of medicine which are high costly, primarily because of the patent protection. So that if you look at that, we do not get a comprehensive list, but there are enough number of medicine you can come across. I'll give you 2 examples. One, cancer medicines, like breast cancer medicine, at least 2 medicines, abemaciclib and ribociclib. These medicines are meant to treat early stages of a breast cancer, a particular type of breast cancer. But the prices are like 67,000, 64,000 for one drug, another drug somewhere between 48,000 to 95,000 per month. So even these medicines are available at an early stage, large number of women suffering from that type of breast cancer could have been treated, but that's not available because of the product patent. Similarly, risdiplam is an SMA for the treatment of SMA. The research shows that the cost of production for that medicine to provide one person per year is around 3,024 rupees in India. But that medicine is available per bottle is 6,20,000 rupees. So an adult needs at least 3 bottles. So who can afford this? So these are the cases where the compulsory license should have been used. No companies have come forward, and the patients are now depending upon the government, and government has taken a policy which you can see that not to use any compulsory license. So there are 2 instances where government's approach to this question have come out. One is that in a USTR, in a submission to the USTR Special 301, I think it's US-India Chamber of Commerce. I think that's or US-India Joint Business Council, either of them have made a submission that they obtained an oral assurance from the government of India not to use compulsory license anymore, though government denied it. But during COVID, in an affidavit to the Supreme Court, Government of India basically said that using compulsory license at that point of time will have repercussions. So, anyway, we also understand that there was a lot of international pressure, especially from the US, against the use of compulsory license through initiating USTR investigation, ITC investigations, etc. I'm just concluding in 1 minute. So we do understand that that pressure is there, but what I'm trying to say is that these all created a chilling effect on the use of flexibilities, and these, as a result, people are not able to access the medicine which they are required to access. So now the government policy is that, okay, to make use of the compulsory license, but the compulsory license, individuals or patients cannot initiate that use, only a company. So in a way, the right to health under Article 21 is in a way depend upon the business model of a particular company. So that way, currently the product patent regime actually result in denial of treatment for many patients, though we do not have enough the comprehensive data, but we do have case studies. And last point is that this in a way incapacitate the state governments from discharging its constitutional rights. In the sense, under the constitution, to provide treatment is the responsibility of the state government. As long as the medicines are not available at an affordable cost, the state governments cannot discharge their duty. Let me stop it here.
Thank you. Thank you, Gopal Kumar. I think he has brought the downsides of the Patents Act, that some of the advanced drugs may be unaffordable and limiting the access because of that. The compulsory licensing provision was there, but wasn't used except for one grant. But my view on that is that the fact that compulsory licensing provision exists, it is helpful, irrespective of the fact, yes, because the companies in the West know that if they are not, using this, there may be a
I just want to add, sir,
yes,
that CL granted on 12th of February 2012
yes,
to Nexava,
right,
opened up the floodgates of voluntary licenses.
Exactly.
Almost all of them are
Yeah.
happy beneficiaries of voluntary licenses.
Right.
Today it has become order of the day.
Yes.
Till 2012, there were no voluntary licenses.
So I think the fact that we have this provision is important. And whether I don't care whether it is used or not, it is important to have it. So with that, let me turn to my own colleague, Reggie Joseph. And I am looking at the watch. The original time allotted for today's discussion was up to 4:30. We are already at 4:34. But with your permission, I think we can extend it to 5 o'clock. And so that after Reggie, I want to open up the discussion to so many of very knowledgeable people in the room and online. So over to you, Reggie, and quickly, and then we will open it.
Thank you, sir. I have a PPT.
Yeah.
So some of the panelists mentioned about the ecosystem, and the first speaker specifically spoke about the regulatory ecosystem. So I want to build on that. So we know that patents are important for protecting pharmaceutical innovations, especially because they are very easy to be copied. However, patents alone are not sufficient. If you look back historically, so we had a product patent regime in India between 1911 and 1970, but there was no R&D taking place in India. So that means patents alone are not sufficient. And we also know that the 1970 Patents Act, which provided only for process patents, contributed immensely in developing an indigenous generic pharma industry. But that was only one of the many industrial policy measures adopted by the government. The public sector enterprises, they played a major role in acquiring technology from foreign countries and disseminating. Similarly, public sector research laboratories, they worked with the industry to develop technologies required by the industry. So similarly, trade and FDA policies were also used to protect the Indian pharma firms as well as force them to manufacture. So the patents will work in an ecosystem where it can meaningfully contribute. So when India joined the TRIPS agreement, a number of questions were asked. Whether Indian firms will invest more in R&D, whether they have the capability of doing the R&D. So the opinion was divided. Some people said, yes, Indian firms have the capability to do that. They are currently not doing because there is no product patent regime. But some others said, no, Indian firms do not have the financial and technology capability to develop new drugs. And what has happened over the years, if you look at the R&D intensity, R&D as a percentage of sales, what we see is that it has been increasing over the years. Of course, there are fluctuations in between, but overall it has been increasing. Yeah. But what is the nature of the innovations? So some studies were done in the first 10 years of the product patent regime up to 2015. So the Dinesh Abrol and all did a few studies. Those studies found that more than 90% of the innovations are in process technologies, drug combinations, and new drug delivery systems. Very few in terms of new medicines. However, there are some recent evidence emerging which suggests that some of the leading firms are entering into the business of new drug development. So Cydus Cadila has developed the first new chemical entity from India, and Wohat has got a recent approval for a new antibiotic. And it is reported that a few molecules are in the advanced stages. It may come out soon. But here, the foreign R&D centers, they play a major role. On the one hand, we encourage foreign firms to come here and establish R&D centers. But on the other hand, Indian pharma firms, some of the leading firms are there establishing R&D centers in foreign countries. There may be many reasons for that, but one major reason appears to be lack of a conducive innovation ecosystem in India. So before coming to that, I want to quickly run through this chart. So there are different phases in pharmaceutical R&D. In phase 1, which it takes about 3 years, and it accounts for about 27% of the total R&D budget. So during this time, the studies about how diseases would work in a human body, which are the compounds likely to used for treating the disease condition, out of the identified chemical compounds, which has the maximum potential. So these analyses are done in the phase 1. So out of the 10,000 compounds identified here, only one will reach the market. So the failure rate is very high. But now what is happening is that in the phase 1, with the use of new technologies such as artificial intelligence, genetics, and computational chemistry, the R&D is being done much more efficiently. So the appropriate chemical compounds are identified quickly at lower cost. Okay, so now those who are using AI technologies and other new technologies, they are able to identify compounds which have higher chances of succeeding. So I think Professor Ruji mentioned about 5,000 number. Maybe that is in the context of use of new technologies. Then we have phase 2 preclinical studies, which also takes about 3 to 6 years and about 20% of the total R&D budget. Then human clinical trials. It accounts for 40% of the R&D budget and takes about 2 to 6 years. So overall, if you look, it takes about 10 to 16 years, and there are various estimates about the R&D budget, ranging from 2.5 billion to 4-5 billion. Okay. Now I will come to the ecosystem aspects. There are a few companies in India which provide AI platforms for helping firms to do the studies in the phase one. Okay. But we need to advance those technologies. But for that, we need human health data. And the schemes like Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, it aim to digitize health data. Okay, so now the data exists, but that exists in silos. Okay, so if somebody wants to access the data, it's not available. So the raw material for the developing new technologies is actually it exists, but those who want to use it is not available for them. So this is a major issue. So these issues may be addressed if we have a proper policy on deep tech startup ecosystem. So we have been pondering over a national deep tech startup policy since 2023, but still it is in the draft form. Another issue here is that the AI, the startups which develop AI platforms, so they need to validate those platforms. For that, they need to engage with academia. But the poor academia industry collaboration in India, that is also a major hurdle. So the recent initiative of Anusandhan Research Foundation, so that is trying to help developing the industry academia collaboration. So hope that will facilitate the collaboration between the two. Similarly, in clinical trials, so if you look at the share of clinical trials taking place in India, it has declined over the years from 11% in 2019 to 6% in 2021. Whereas China is accounting for 29% now, just after US. Okay. So we have brought in the new drugs and clinical trial rules in 2019 with a view to abuse. Earlier there were a lot of abuse, like the patients were selected without taking their consent, the remuneration were not disbursed on time. Okay, but now this regulation seems to have some serious issues. So there is a book written by K.L. Sharma. He was formerly the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, looking after the drug regulation. So he is pointing out some of the major issues. So one issue is that there is a three-tier committee system, and there is lack of coordination among these committees, and the decisions taken are not scientific. Okay, so the firms, someone applying for a clinical trial, it is not clear whether the approval will come or not, when it will come, a lot of issues. So similarly, there are major challenges with the, yes, I'm going to finish, preclinical regulations also. So considering all these, it is reported that some of the leading firms are taking their core R&D out of India. Now, why we need to fix the innovation ecosystem? See, it enables domestic R&D. That at the same time, it also creates a lot of spillover effects, which also encourages other firms to invest in R&D, and it also creates jobs. And we know pharma sector is the largest sector in terms of private sector industrial R&D, accounting for about 1/3. And fixing the pharma sector innovation ecosystem will have an impact on other sectors also. And the Viksit Bharat emphasis on boosting R&D and for fixing the innovation system is very important. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. Very useful presentation, very insightful, and bringing some actual numbers on to the discussion. So with that, we have heard such a profound sort of selection or collection of very sort of knowledgeable experts. But because we have so many others, very knowledgeable experts participating in this workshop or roundtable, let me open it up. And of course, it is 16:45, so hopefully we get some insights from the discussion, and then we will turn to some of the people who spoke in the beginning. So who wants to go first? So there is one hand over there, and online Anyone?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah, Ajay, certainly, yes, yes. So Ajay, go ahead, and
Thanks.
then
Thanks,
I'll
Madanji. So I'm no expert in pharma. I came to listen to all of you and benefit from that. But I have one major problem with the discussions. And the problem is that, so I want to understand the impact of our patent laws and TRIPS on the degree of imports in our pharma sectors.
Yes.
So prior to TRIPS, prior to 1995, we were neck to neck with China in APIs. Now, when TRIPS came, our pharma industry exploded. Profits increased and volume increased. So most of our pharma firms, they thought that why invest a lot of time and money in the complicated process of making APIs. So they almost ignored that. As a result, we are importing 70% from China, chemical-based APIs, and about 90% on biologics from China. So in the era of tense geopolitics and everybody is blackmailing everybody else, we see China, how they are stopping everything one way. If something happens, do we have any plan?
Yeah.
So I'll stop here. Yeah.
No, I think a very important question, but I think it is not related to patents. It's the business dynamics of the country. So let me turn to the lady, but important point to be. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Shantana Dikshit and I belong to agrochemical industry. So we may not be related to pharma, but we have similar issues.
Certainly.
Okay, so what happened last year, there was a similar issue of data exclusivity and patent term extension, which was being pushed by some people from the MNC side. So what we did is instead of looking at or defending just not allow data exclusivity, we looked at the other side of the issue and we tried to understand in last 10 years how many patents were given in our sectors and how many of them were commercially launched. So based on our analysis, the best data that we received that time, we found that from 2010 to 2022, nearly 60% of the patents which were granted in our sector were never commercialized. And these companies who were holding the patents, they have commercialized those particular patented products or chemicals, we should say, in other parts of the world. So basically, they have lost a long time period of 10 to 15 years after holding the patent. So there is a clause within our Patent Act, section 83, which talks about working of the patents.
Yes,
and it says that if the patent is not
worked, then you
it
can
is a crime. And
Yeah.
if somebody wants to take compulsory licensing under section 84 on the basis of non-working of a patent, that can be done. So this
should be practiced.
we prepared a very good paper on this. We submitted it to the government of India also, and
Share it with us also.
Yes, I would like to share it with you all. And it was very well appreciated and received, and they said that it has turned out to be a very good pointer to defend their case in front of
Absolutely.
during FTAs and bilateral. And the second thing which I would like to, sir, highlight in short, very short. The second thing is that, as sir said, Gopakumar sir said that NTBs will arise. So I was reading one document of USA NTBs, which is released in 2025, I think 1 month back only. So they are now talking about the trade secret laws, and they have quoted to parliamentary committee documents which have spoken of working out trade secret law in India. So they are, indirectly or directly pushing that. Maybe it is not a very big problem for our sector, but definitely for pharma, it's a bigger player in the.
Thank you very much, especially for raising this point about the patents not worked and using the provision of our Patents Act to release them or open them up. Yeah, and also your point about NTBs, and which relates to the point earlier raised by Mr. Gopakumar. So who wants to go? Dinesh? दिनेश नहीं बोलेंगे तो कौन बोले?
नहीं, मदान साहब, मैंने सोचा मदान साहब से सुन लूं पहले मैं, लेकिन
अच्छा, ओके।
मदान साहब कुछ कहना है?
नहीं सर,
गोपा ने कह दिया।
हाँ, फरेशा जी भी बोल चुके हैं।
देखिए, I think Reggie made this an important point that Patent Act by itself has never led to innovation. Patent Acts are meant to create barriers also.
Yeah.
That one should keep in mind.
Yeah.
Number one. And product patent was considered a strong patent barrier. That's why we eliminated it in Patent Act 1970. And that's how the industry came up. So today, let's now ask this question after the introduction of product patent. What did we do to actually overcome this particular barrier? Could we go above the height or not and do it or not? I think that evaluation has not been done. Number one, as far as it's concerned. Number two, whether the foreign firms have actually, increased their market power within the market. Again, I would have liked the IPA to, or Sun. I don't know, IPA has foreign firms and members or not. I do not know. Archana would tell me, probably not. It's good that they are in OPPI only. But sometimes I hear that you were willing to, also there were some people who were applying for membership. If they have not applied, good, please keep them out as far as it's concerned. Let them be in OPPI. Okay. So foreign firms have become how dominant in what particular therapeutic groups, etc., in what NCs. And the paper that we did in 2016 from here only in ISID, in fact, we have noted, and it's there with me, I've just downloaded from the website here, that there are a number of NCs in which, product patents were filed and monopolies were emerging as far as it's concerned. And I think, again, an evaluation is needed on that. And if GOPA is trying to do a database on that, it would be great. But I did up to 2016. I have, and then 2018, I retired from this particular institution. I do not have access to data and so on, etc. I'll have to find me that I know whether IPA, whether Kalpana ji, Sun Pharma can help in this particular thing. We should do this particular evaluation of in how many NCs we feel the challenge and what challenge we have. Because now you are, on one hand, dreaming of becoming an innovator country. GOPA is still dreaming. But when I heard various people, I don't want to name them, I heard on April 17th, very recently in Hyderabad, other GOPA and me were together in that particular meeting. And I didn't think that people thought that we're going to become innovator country very soon. Not very soon. I may not be. If we go and continue like this, we will never become. Okay, I am willing to jump the gun as far as is concerned, because the kind of policies that we have adopted as far as is concerned, they have not allowed us to go over the height as far as is concerned. Finally, the sportsperson has to go over the barrier as far as is concerned. We are a great country with a great history of 100 years of both small farm molecules as well as in vaccines as far as it's concerned. And rightly said, 19 PCRA and all that you named as far as it's concerned, it's including work of various national laboratories, etc. Products were developed. There were, I think, 13 products were actually coming out of CDRI, which one can take note of, even at that time, as far as it's concerned. So products can come up even without incentivizing. But if private sector was looking for, I think, any patent as incentive, I think it was a misplaced. We did in 2000, we produced in Planning Commission a report. My boss, Dr. Ramesh Mashelkar, produced a report saying we will become the knowledge superpower. From 2010 onwards, every year we will put out one molecule in the world market. We haven't. We haven't. Let's recognize that. So that is 2000 to 2010. We said within 10 years we will do this. And we haven't been able to do it. So we should reflect on saying why we have not been able to do it. It's 15 years now, 2025. So I think if we can go out, have a cup of tea and coffee and say we have done very well. But see China, what it has done. And if you want to compare with the country
there's
of
a larger
size,
question.
let's discuss. And I think we must discuss.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dinesh. Anyone else within the room or outside? Otherwise, yeah, please.
But since we have talked about the R&D, we would like to mention that in the previous years we had the benefit of Section 35(2)(ab) of the Income Tax Act, and the total expense from 3% had gone to around 7 to 8%.
Weighted deduction.
Weighted deduction, 200%. So we have been making the request to the various quarters, and we would like even our report may take cognizance of this thing, that in case we need to go more for the patents, we need to promote innovation. And for that, we need the help from the government.
I
That's
support Madan's point, and Ashok. I think we need to have a meeting on what all needs to be done and what can be done even now. And we're not discussing that at the moment.
Dr. Reggie has mentioned about the ecosystem. So we need to have a comprehensive look at the ecosystem required for achieving our objectives.
Yes. So unless somebody else is, oh, I see one hand raised, Ujwal Kumar. Ujwal, we really are short of time, but I'll give you 1 minute if you have a quick point. Oh.
I have question for Mr. A.K. Pradhan sir. We were told that the CDSCO is amending the biosimilar guidelines of 2016, and draft amendments will be for public comment. But we are not seeing this. What is the timeline of that?
Sir, already draft guideline is in the public domain. 30 days has been given for giving comments and suggestions of the public. Already it is released on 24th April.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And one quick question is, if anybody can answer, is patent thickets is one of the barriers for, particularly in the biopharma sector, and whether the anti-evergreening provisions in 3D and 3E will be sufficient for tackling with the patent thickets, and what is the recourse for that? Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Pradhan, you want to respond to him quickly?
You see, because I'm not an expert in patent issues, but from my previous experience, I have seen that Section 30D has been very useful in addressing many complex situations. Call it evergreening or whatever it may be.
Right.
Because we have seen the cases of Gleevec, that imatinib mesylate, that Novartis case, where specifically the 3D. And
Dr.
I
Kumar,
think,
if I can add here what Dr. Pradhan is saying, and to answer your question. Section 3D alone may not be sufficient. It's a myriad of other legislative actions or procedural stuff that one need to take into account before the whole bulwark of evergreening has to come down, the patent thicket that you're talking about. It's there. I can share with you a couple of examples on how industry has gone about it offline. So I can do that. And just one more point I wanted to make, I think Paul sir made a point on the innovation, on whether we should look at more than the incremental innovation. I think, yes, we need to. And this may not be the topic of discussion today, but as I think Gopanaya sir also said about need to look at comprehensively. The whole pharma sector is very critical. And in that, just for the audiences, I wanted to make a point here that IPA is already working on and have identified 4 pillars on how to move up the value chain. So patent system is one aspect of it. But there is a requirement to look at strengthening or simplification of regulatory drug regulatory system. There is a collaboration required between the industry and academia. There's also infrastructure that needs to be created to be able to incentivize companies to take R&D. And the 4th pillar that we've essential is how do we fund R&D? Because that's a very, very critical part for all the biopharma in India. So those are 4 pillars we're working on, but it's a separate topic.
Very good. Look forward to having access to that paper that you are working on. Yes. So I think it's already 5 o'clock. That is what we thought we will close this. And exactly. Absolutely. No, and that is precisely what I was feeling, that, with this group, with this group, we can go on talking about TRIPS agreement and pharmaceutical industry overnight. There is no doubt about. But let me just, raise a couple of issues to just sum it up. What was a very rich discussion, very interesting and rich discussion, and very insightful at the same time. And I get a feeling that this was a beginning of a continued discussion, which should continue for some time while this issue is hot. I think two, three points come to my mind that Indian pharmaceutical industry is a crown jewel of the manufacturing sector in India. Yeah. So it's a crown jewel. You look around the landscape of manufacturing sector, which we did recently in our India Industrial Development Report. This is the sector which has really grown and with a cutting edge and export oriented of all our manufacturing industries. And so this is a big hope for the country as far as, this is the best example that India can produce of a competitive manufacturing sector and built in the country by the Indian companies and initially helped by the Patents Act of 1970, but we were able to manage the transition to product patents in a relatively good manner, balancing our public health concerns and genuine innovation. And some improvement over time is visible. More needs to be done. And also, as some of you pointed out, more data is needed to really evaluate what exactly happened. But things as they appear, and many of you refer to them, suggest that we may have been able to manage and balance our concerns quite well. And and then also was mentioned in number of presentations that patents is, after all, only one of the issues and one of the factors that lead to innovation, cutting edge, competitiveness, and all other things. So whole ecosystem needs to be strengthened and improved. And we need to work on many fronts, but also maintaining this ability or flexibility that our patent system provides, and not to succumb to the pressure that may come on us in the trade negotiations, by the FTA negotiations, to open up this and agree to some of the patent TRIPS plus provisions. That is something of a caution. Everyone, I think, agrees in this room. The point you raised, Ajay, this how we became so much dependent upon APIs. I think it's not related to patents. We actually produce these APIs. IDPL and HAL were set up for producing these APIs, but we abandoned that capacity like we have abandoned in many other areas, even labor intensive goods. Recently we did this study for Niti Aayog. 20% of our footwear comes from China. Can't we manufacture footwear? So the same thing applies to APIs, that our companies thought if we can buy it cheaper from China, why produce it here? That was the thing. So it is not nothing to do with the patent system. It is our other mentality not to bother about creating jobs here, but making more profits. That is. So that is a larger issue which afflicts different industries, and particularly the labor-intensive industries, and we need to find an answer or solution for that challenge. But as far as pharma is concerned, and as far as the TRIPS agreements implementation for pharma industry is concerned, we can really take pride in our the authors of this amendment, that they could balance in the given circumstances as much as possible. They could balance the concerns of public health while also providing a space for innovation, genuine innovation, and for other informal innovations. We can create a second layer, as we have argued in a number of our writings, that creating a utility model kind of framework for promoting innovation by MSMEs, informal innovation, jugaad, or whatever you may want to call it. So on that note, I think, I like to thank everyone, all of you who contributed online and physically here in this room, and all of you who participated in this discussion. Thank you very much. So let us give them a very big round of applause.
Thank you for inviting all of us.
And some of you actually traveled long distances to be part of this. And I can assure you that I think we will continue this discussion, very lively discussion that we started today. And hopefully we will be able to manage this pressure that will come on India in the context of negotiations of the FTAs, that we sustain our position. And well, we don't know the details. Yeah. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank you,
everyone.
thank you. Bye.